My 23 brother, 32, has always had a strained relationship. My brother is a devoted Roman Catholic with very conservative views. I am a liberal lesbian. We have never seen eye to eye, but regardless of this, our father's 64 love has always been able to tie the family together. He worked extremely hard for his business and to provide a good life for our family, even when doing it alone. My mother passed of cancer when I was about 4, and he never remarried. Our estate is pretty large, roughly $4.2 million for each child after my dad passes. One of my father's wishes in order to qualify for his will would be to never legally contest or sue either sibling for their share of the will, the party who does forfeit their entire cut of the estate. This is on the first page of the will and was repeated to us several times. A few weeks ago, a cousin, 28, Lou, was at my brother's house just catching up when my brother admitted he planned on suing me for my inheritance. My cousin was even able to snap a photo of the engagement letter from the attorney when he wasn't looking and sent it to me. Needless to say, I was pissed. I felt hurt and betrayed in a way I couldn't even really understand. I told our dad immediately, who called my brother to confront him. My brother denied it at first, but admitted to it after my dad kept pushing him. My dad said how disappointed he was in my brother for doing something so slimy to his own sister. My dad then told me to get a good lawyer and then proceeded to call his attorney to let them know what happened. My sister-in-law, 31, who also does not like me, called, and as it turns out, they expecting another baby. I currently have 5 nieces and nephews from my brother. My brother and his wife are afraid they wouldn't be able to handle another child financially. Now, my brother and his wife are telling our family what happened, and while some are on my side, most of our family is calling me an idiot for not offering the half of the inheritance back to my brother, because now his family will struggle due to my selfishness. I've even had relatives come to my house just to curse me out on my front lawn. My dad suggests I stay strong and don't give in. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If your brother was getting $4 million, then he wasn't suing you because he didn't think he could afford another baby. The only logical conclusion then is that he was suing you purely out of his own bigotry and spite for you being a liberal lesbian. That being said, I would take part of that money that he is no longer getting and set it aside for your nieces and nephews' college education. Maybe set up some kind of trust where they don't actually get the money. They just send their college tuition, housing, and book bills to someone, and they cut a check and pay the bill. Your brother is trying to blame you for his poor family and financial planning. You have no obligation to save him from his stupidity. Once your dad's estate is settled, someday many years from now, you may, at your discretion, give your nieces and nephews some fancy gifts. Otherwise, tell them all to pound sand. Rudely if required. Sounds to me like you will have to go no contact with your brother and other parts of the family. Sorry about that, but it happens. The only opinion here that matters is your dad's. It is his money, he made his wishes perfectly clear, both in his will and now that your brother is acting out. If they can't afford a 6th child, they shouldn't have one, and they sure as hell shouldn't expect your father's inheritance to pay for it. But 2, on top of that, expect you to forfeit your half for the choices they have made. I just don't understand how anybody's mind could be that twisted and entitled. I hope you get to keep your dad for a long time, and if the time comes, I am sure you will live a good life with whatever inheritance you are lucky enough to get. Good luck. My mother-in-law's goddaughter, Amy, is not a nice person, but I'm the only one who seems to see it. So, when I walked in on my 4-year-old son close to tears and being pressured by his dad to apologize to her for being rude, I immediately intervened. My son insisted Amy had said something mean to him, but she tried to make it look like my son misunderstood and was overreacting. From past experience, I knew she was lying. My husband kept insisting my son needed to apologize. Instead, I told my son I believed him and that he didn't need to apologize. My son said, "But Daddy said I have to," and I replied to tell him that he still didn't have to. I asked him to go pick a book for bedtime, even though my husband kept protesting and insisting he couldn't leave until he said sorry. After we put our son to bed, my husband had a huge argument with me. He kept saying I was undermining his parenting and teaching our son that he could get away with not listening to his dad. He insisted our son was being rude and that was unacceptable, and that I was blinded by my dislike of Amy. I replied by telling him that he was the blind one. He also blamed me for our son asking if his dad didn't love him anymore. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I say this as the mother of a 21-year-old son in therapy. There were 2 instances in his life where his father and I made him apologize to keep peace when he was clearly in the right. Although seemingly insignificant at the time, they contributed to his low self-worth and always placing others' wants and needs above him. I've really had to reevaluate priorities and how I have handled these situations. And I promise you it will come up again, so I hope you can get on the same page as your husband. It's a fine line, no one wants to raise the bratty kid that is unapologetic. However, your son also needs to grow up secure with himself that he can make the right decisions. My advice is be objective as you can and use each opportunity to teach him appropriately. Not the idiot. Amy is 32, your son is 4. Saying that he is overreacting is going to teach him to hide his emotions, which will lead to bottling them up, which leads to not feeling them, which can lead to being emotionally stunted and counts as emotional neglect. A child calling an adult a liar after the adult tells them you and your mom are going to be sent away is totally within reason. Him hearing that can be enough to cause him trauma, especially if his dad is making him apologize for something he didn't do. Just because Amy is an adult doesn't mean she's right. Not the idiot. Your son needs to know it's okay to stand up to bullies, no matter who they are. I think you did an amazing job showing him that, and also that you believe him, which is a big deal too, and that you'll defend him. Good job. Sounds to me like you guys may need to have a talk about Amy being around at all if she's a bully to you and your son. Any chance Amy could be jealous of you guys and wants your husband to be hers? That's the impression I get, but I could be way off too. I've never met the lady. My wife and I are both highly educated people. We both have doctorates and several master's degrees, as well as being successful in our professional lives. We also have a son, Caleb, 18, who is our pride and joy. Throughout Caleb's life, my wife and I have had some disagreements about parenting. I'm someone who values my son being a well-rounded person, which means I don't want Caleb to just have good grades and I don't care if he doesn't get a perfect score, and my wife is someone who values grades and discipline. It has taken us a long time to find a balance between what me and my wife want. Caleb is in his first semester of law school. One of the requirements to graduate is to certify that you know the English language. Since Caleb already has a certification, he decided to pick up German as a 4th language. I advised him to maybe wait to 3rd semester to start learning German, just to give himself time to get used to how university works, and also because he has history of pressuring himself a lot when studying. Caleb was adamant on starting now, so I didn't push the issue forward. He just finished his 2nd evaluation and he's not doing as well as he expected. He's doing, in my opinion, fine, 9 out of 10 in his first test and 8 out of 10 in his second one, but he is very upset with himself. I tried to console him and told him that if he wanted to, we could look for some private tutoring, and I also reassured him that, for someone who has never spoken an ounce of German, he is doing amazing. My wife, on the other hand, is furious with Caleb. She told him that his grades are unacceptable and to start putting in more effort on his education. Caleb got even more upset and started crying. She tried to ground him for 2 weeks with no outings, but I didn't let her do so. So now she is mad with me. She says that my weak parenting is allowing our son to be mediocre and that she didn't raise Caleb to be average. I got mad because our son is nor average nor mediocre, so I ask her how many languages she speaks. My wife answers 1, so I tell her that she really doesn't have a say on this particular issue, since out of the 3 of us, she is most likely the mediocre one in that department. She got even more furious, so now I'm sleeping on the couch until further notice. I think I really messed up here, but I got very mad with her for making our son cry, so I couldn't keep quiet. Not the idiot. Your wife tried to ground an adult. It's good that you stuck up for a Caleb, but can you gently encourage him to be more assertive to his mom and establish boundaries? I know he's still financially dependent on you and your wife, but the relationship dynamic has to change. Some parents like your wife never give their children their adulthood, and these children have to just take it by force. If Caleb is going to be a lawyer, he will have to learn to be assertive in order to deal with opposing lawyers, etc. Does Caleb's college offer therapy and counseling? It will help him deal with the self-pressure he puts on himself to be perfect and give him the tools to become bulletproof to his mom's toxicity, no offense. While you may have said something in anger that was uncalled for, the breading topic at hand is your wife being the idiot. It looks like you two set high standards for your son to meet, and he's meeting them really well. He's doing a great job in school, and extra tutoring may be the best route to go to give your son that little extra push he needs to get 10 out of 10 across the board in German. I'm going to armchair psychology real quick, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. It seems your wife may be doing some projecting or living vicariously through your son. This usually comes from a place of insecurity or regret based on her view of her accomplishments. It can also come from a positive side of her wanting her son to be the best that he can be because he obviously works really hard. I'd suggest talking with a therapist if possible. Your 18-year-old who knows 3 languages and is already in law school needs to learn that even very smart, dedicated, and industrious people can't do everything. That it's not healthy for anyone to put so much stress upon themselves or to allow others to do so that they are emotionally breaking down over an 8 out of 10 result. Additionally, it's important to be well-rounded and understand concepts like work-life balance. Your wife calling your already highly accomplished son mediocre is both deeply unfair and an indicator that she's internalized her son's success as a reflection of her own intelligence. She needs to decouple her son's success from her own emotional needs. Yesterday was my day off, and I visited my older sister in our province. When I arrived, I saw my sister washing some leaves. I asked what it's for, and she told me it's for my nephew, Tom, 6 years old. Tom first had a fever 3 days ago with rashes all over his body. Sherry took my nephew to a folk healer on the 2nd day of his fever instead of going to a doctor. The healer had Tom drink tea from brewed leaves, then sent him home. My nephew's condition didn't improve, and yesterday when I visited them, he was convulsing and very weak. I told my sister to call a cab because we're taking Tom to the ER. We got to the hospital, and to make the long story short, Tom has dengue. His platelet count is very low, he needed transfusion. I was angry at my sister for endangering my nephew. I called her a horrible mother. She said she did what she thought was right, and the folk doctor was known in the province to cure any illnesses. She cried and said I need to stop blaming her, and I am being an idiot for making her feel worse. Am I the idiot? I know blaming her won't make things better, but she needs to be told off because of being ignorant. I think the big question is, does she seem like she learned from this? Unfortunately, there are a lot of well-meaning idiots. But studies show that kindness and support go further. It's probably better for everyone involved, especially Tom, if you just talk to her about making sure that next time, it's straight to the Compare it to the current world situation. I'd love if all the commercials just said, "You're an idiot, get the damn shot," but it's all we understand the hesitation. It's important to talk to your doctor and to friends and family you trust about their experiences, etc. And people getting it. It's best for Tom to go to your sister with. I know a lot of people trust the faith healer, and the hospital is scary, but the hospital doctors have more training, resources, equipment, and that's what you have to do. The fact that she went to the healer and not the hospital is not so foreign in many countries, as weird as it can be for us Westerners. My partner comes from a country where this is common. He suffered from it by not receiving proper medical care when he was young, and this practice and trust is linked to deeper things. Many people only bring their family to the hospital when it's too late after much healer treatment and then die there, making people think the hospital is the cause and not the delayed treatment. For example, you can't just yell at her, but you need to have an open conversation with her about what hospitals can provide, aka save her son in this case, and what makes the healer more valid for her. She can't make this about herself now, when she is the one that endangered her child. You're right, she is horrible. I mean, come on. Even if someone does believe in healers, wouldn't it be weird that his condition didn't improve after going to the said healer? At all. I'd think maybe, if he started improving, okay, I could see why he didn't go then. But he was staying the same. She should have taken her child to the hospital after realizing that. If healers really are a thing, you think it would work pretty quickly. Not the idiot. So my sister lives in South Africa with her boyfriend. We're from the United Kingdom for reference. Recently, her and her boyfriend bought a house. This house is huge, to say the very least. It's got 4 bedrooms, 3 of which have a bathroom, with the largest bedroom having a walk-in wardrobe. There's 2 other bathrooms, as well as a pool. Not to mention that it has 2 garages and a massive garden. Recently, my sister was talking about her house, or more so bragging about her house. I want to make it clear that I'm very happy that my sister and her boyfriend have been able to buy a house. However, property is very cheap in South Africa, so that same house would be over £1 million in the United Kingdom. While she was talking, I told her that her buying a house that big in South Africa isn't really the same as buying a house as large as that in the United Kingdom, for the reasons listed above. She joking told me that I need to stop being so jealous. However, she hasn't spoken to me since. According to my mother, my sister thinks that I was being a jerk by saying what I did, which my mother agrees with. My mother thinks that her and her boyfriend earned the money to buy the house, so it counts just as much as buying a house here. I'm aware that I could have phrased things better, however, I still stand by the premise of what I said. Am I the idiot here? You're the idiot. As someone who lives in South Africa, the housing market is still trash. We have a crazy scary environment with all the crime, being a woman and during the sea times. Buying a house here is someone myself and so many other adults wish we could do, but unless you have good savings and a good job, it will never happen. You sound very jealous. It is extremely terrifying to be a homeowner here. Most of my friends and family who used to be homeowners have left the country and moved overseas because of the crime. You should be grateful she has a home that is currently safe. You're the idiot. Yes, property is cheaper in South Africa, but are she and her boyfriend getting paid as much there as they would in the United Kingdom? Usually, if property values are low in a country, so is the generalized pay rate. And even if they do get paid about the same as they would in the United Kingdom, for them, this is a huge deal. Of course they want to brag about it. First-time homeownership is a big deal for anyone, let alone if you can find a decent-sized one within your price range. If you do not want to listen to her talk about it, you could simply tell her that you have heard enough and to stop. Saying that it doesn't count. That is just rude and completely unnecessary. Are you going to compare every achievement or milestone in her life to what it would have required in the United Kingdom? Does her whole life not count, because you sound very much like you think building a life here is invalid and maybe just inherently less impressive because we're a developing nation. Secondly, if they're earning in rands, buying a house of the kind you're describing is not damn easy. It may be cheap for you, but not for locals. If you're jealous of the lifestyle, move here, but don't be jealous and condescending at the same time, it's a bad look.